Isn't it supposed to?
Yeah,
Okay,
okay, we're on.
I was waiting for that. All right, it's a little slow. I'm glad you're doing the presenting of the slides, Faith, because I'm slow here with my bandwidth. All right, well, welcome everyone to our computer science learning event for October. And we're really excited about this one. We just practiced it again, and this is going to be a lot of fun. So if you can, in the chat, just tell us what brings you here, what do you hope to learn, and what is your role at your office or school. We have a special guest today at our morning session, so you are so lucky because, yeah, we'll let him introduce himself. Okay, so next slide. So here's our agenda, and
sorry, I missed one. Sorry,
oh,
I'm sorry.
yeah, let's introduce ourselves. I hear birds. Okay, so I'm Janine Nakakura. Birds from my house, I think. Okay, so I'm a resource teacher with OSID, Department of Education, and I'll introduce our Hanai colleague. We've adopted him into our Ohana, Jamie Nunez, and then Faith will introduce herself after that. So Jamie, are you ready to introduce yourself?
Yeah, aloha everyone. Nice to see you all. Alyssa, I don't know if that's blue hair on your hair, but I really like it. Very stylish for sure. John Loom, I like your style as well. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm a regional manager at Common Sense Media. I help to support school districts from western half of the United States, supporting state level initiatives, district level initiatives, as well as some educator initiatives. So help people think about digital citizenship and digital wellness differently. So mahalo for the time. Appreciate your space and time with you all.
And hi, everybody. Faith Ishihara from the Office of Curriculum and Instructional Design, working in the same office with Janine, and so happy to be here with our Hanai brother, Jamie. Thanks for joining us.
All right, so there's our agenda. I just put the link into the chat. All of the links, the schedule, the presentation links, whatever, everything in the kitchen sink is in there. I'll probably go back in and edit, but if you need something, just go there. Yeah. Okay, and from the feedback from previous sessions, people have found this to be helpful. So there you go. That's a screenshot. So the link is to the left. Okay, so here's a bell ringer to start off with, part one. Just think in general terms, how much time do you spend on a device each day? Could you type that into the chat? How much time do you spend on a device each day? Type your answer in the chat. Too much.
Too much.
My good friend Hope.
Hours.
Hours.
Yeah, too many to count, huh, John?
And what we're going to do is
Yeah,
watching the recordings of these sessions, and then if you watch the recording, you don't know what's happening in the chat. So we're going to try to put some of the answers into the chat or into the slide presentation. Okay, so next question, part two, and we've got a range like hours and hours, too much, 2/3 of a day, all the time, okay, because that's his job. Okay, so here's the second part. Now that you've thought about how much time you spend online every day, for besides work, what do you spend the most time doing online? Okay, so type your answer in the chat again. So besides work, okay, what do you spend the most time doing online? And I'll share my response with you after this.
I'm gonna have to forward to capture the next.
So besides work, what do you spend the most time doing online? Shopping, TikTok for crime stuff. Oh, interesting.
Oops.
Games, watching videos, social media, shopping hula, shopping for items you can't afford, shopping and watching videos, internet and entertainment and shopping. I don't understand besides work. Yeah, Shane just works because he loves it. Okay. Okay, games, listening to podcasts, mostly work, but otherwise reading websites. Okay, so I'm going to share what I do. Next slide.
And thanks for reading it out, Jenny, because unless I leave the presentation, I found out I can't add to the slide.
It's fine. You know what we'll do is we'll get the chat log after, so we'll put it into the slide presentation. So if you're watching the recording, then you can see what we were reading in the chat. Okay, so this is what I like to do online. I like to look for recipes and I like to enter contests. And it just so happened there was an online recipe contest. And I won second place for my Ono banana poi bread recipe for the Civil Beat recipe contest for the banana category. And I have a special ingredient in there. It's sour cream. And I also use really sour poi. The more sour, the better. And it tastes great. Okay, so.
Ooh, Janine, sour cream and sour poi with banana. Oh, it doesn't sound good.
Well, Faith, you know, it's really good. Trust me. You know what? Do you have a better recipe?
I do actually.
You do? Okay, bring it. Bring it. You know what? When I see you tomorrow, when I see you at work next time, bring it.
Yeah,
You better
I'm
watch out.
bringing it.
You better watch out.
I am bringing it.
Okay, you know, if you believe there are really great Academy Award-winning performances, we're just joking. Okay, so there's recipe cyberbullying. Did you know that? I kind of made it up, but these are some links. I'm not going to go to the link, but here's the title, you know, of each link. More than 70% of adults use social media for recipes instead of cookbooks. And then children under 10 are using social media, so younger and younger children. And then, you know, somebody mentioned TikTok. Well, you know, one of the things that gets shared a lot on TikTok is recipes. And, you know, being from Hawaii, we all use rice cookers, right? But some guy shared a recipe for making rice in an oven, and people were hating on him. Like, you didn't wash your rice first. You didn't use the right ratio of water. And so he had to go back and do a revised video because everybody was just hating on him. Okay, so, you know, the last link is how social media turns online arguments between teens into real world violence. And, you know, we've heard that some of the schools, when returned to learn, you know, they went to in-person learning, they said there was a lot of fights, like 4 to 5 fights a day at schools. And I think Terry, our colleague, was saying a lot of it starts with something online, and then when they see each other in person, they want to, you know, get revenge, or, you know, like, hey, you know, what did you say about me online, Faith? You know, about my recipe and the sour cream. You think yours is better? No. Okay. So anyway, next slide. So you know, while I was researching this webinar, this is for real. I found this article, and it's about violence in Oregon, but the police chief talked about beefs that erupt in shootings, and it comes from social media. And then in the same article, they talked about, they post a picture of a recipe, and then somebody wants to clown on that recipe, and then it just blows up. So, you know, they don't understand the impact of social media. They don't understand that the comment affects a lot of people and causes a lot of anger, okay? So that's where digital citizenship comes in, you know? So going back to that other video, slide, 2 slides back. Can you go back a little?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, I forgot to mention that, you know, what could you do to prevent a fight the next day? And how can you teach others to be kinder online so we don't have these types of, you know, fights happening from something small that was said online, maybe anonymously? Okay, so next slide. Okay, so here's a training video. Okay, for those of you not from our state Department of Education, we have to watch these training videos, mandatory. There's like 13 of them now. And there's one called Workplace Violence. And I don't know, some of them must be 50 years old, I swear. But here's a really old video that we've seen 30-something times, maybe. And there's something relevant in here. So let's play an 8-second clip from this.
Hey, if you don't give me 20 bucks, I'm going to post those pictures of you from last weekend online.
Direct threats.
Okay, you guys all have this memorized, right? You guys and gals got this memorized, right? We've seen this video so many times. So what would you do if somebody did that? So let's go back to this slide. So this is from the book that Faith will be talking more about later in this webinar. And this is called Digital Compass. It's just a compass to look at. And there's no black or white when you are, you know, talking about these types of dilemmas or you know, incidents. So where would you stand? You know, does it depend? As long as you don't get caught, it's an individual choice. I don't know if it's right or wrong. Okay, so she'll share more resources from that book later. Okay, next slide. Alrighty, so what are the pros and cons of being online? So if you have anything else to add to this, just put it in the chat and we'll add it to our table here. But you know, some social media is not all good and it's not all bad. You know, I've made some friends and I've gotten recipes and, share things with others. So I can share, I can make new friends, but, I can also be negative and be anonymous and share embarrassing info without people's permission. So there are pros and cons. Okay, next slide. So it's more than just coding, computer science. Computer science consists of these 5 core concepts. We went over all 5 of them in the first webinar or the first event. And now we're focusing on the 5th one, impacts of computing, which is from the K-12 computer science framework. So, the impacts of computing covers culture, social interactions, and safety, law, and ethics. Okay, next slide. So here's the progression chart of the computer science standards. And we've seen this before. The 5 core concepts on the left, grade bands going across the top, but there's a backside. So a lot of people don't know. You flip it over. And so there are the impacts of computing on the bottom in the purple, culture, social interactions, and safety, law, and ethics. Those are all the standards that relate to that area. So we're going to take 3 standards from that. Okay. And there's some resources on the bottom, standards for students, standards for teachers, progression chart. These are the ones we're going to focus on today. And we have one for elementary, middle, and high school. Okay. Working respectfully and responsibly, comparing trade-offs, evaluating the ways computing impacts us. And then if you're wondering, what are all those numbers? Okay. The 1A is your grade band. The IC is the core concept of impacts of computing. And the number is the standard. Okay. So people keep asking, what about these standards? I don't really understand them. Well, there's a general, just a general description, but if you pull down on that little arrow, you'll see a very detailed description of what that standard is. And you're already doing a lot of this, okay? Or teachers are already doing a lot of this, okay? So next slide. So we're going to turn it over to our colleague, Jamie, and he will just kind of quickly, in about 10 minutes, go over, just an overview of digital citizenship and why it's important.
All right, Janine, much mahalo. Appreciate you just giving an overview. Thanks for making me reflect on my time online. I didn't realize how much time I spend. So part of the conversation, I think, that both Alliance and Computer Science, as well as just thinking critically about what we want our kids to be doing, is just the essence of digital citizenship. And we at Common Sense, as well as the folks that we work with, really define this digital citizenship concept as someone who can actually think critically about the opportunities and the challenges of a digital world, and then therefore then use technology responsibly to learn, create, and participate. So earlier, Janine and Faith said, here's a recipe that I'm kind of going back and forth with, right? So there's an opportunity to be both mindful of the pros of using that recipe to benefit families, to benefit your health. And then the con is all the ramifications that you deal with, right? So if Janine were to be serious about Faith's recipe, she might say, the next time I'm in your office, I tasted that and that's horrible. And by the way, I don't like the coffee you did that you make me, all these interesting dynamics that we can kind of see play out. So what we're trying to do is build a foundation for our students. Next slide. And I think here's kind of the importance of it, right? And I think most of you have already highlighted this on the chat, which is we know that we have all are using technology. What we're starting to see, though, and this is, again, a slide from 2019, we're starting to see a huge increase in not only ownership, but the amount of time spent on time with our kids. So we know that it's important to understand how to pivot when they're spending time online, our kids in general, and teach them those habits. Next slide. And I think the key in all of this is, as you think about the time used online, for many of our kids, for many of our families, for many of our educators, I think the challenge is when there's a dilemma, right? We don't know how to respond or react to that. This is the ADL. They released these reports. This is from 2017, but we're starting to see a lot of hate speech that comes up from kids in these spaces. So they might see something that looks like them, or they might be on a TikTok experience that might rub them the wrong way. And the immediate thing that they often turn to is race, or maybe culture in many sense. So what we're trying to do is not prevent this. You're never going to prevent you at one day, maybe before I die, we'll all live in peace. But we know as long as we're different, we have to be able to understand and meet our kids to help them understand when they experience this type of hate speech online. So part of this is a naming that it exists. Next slide. And then the other thing is really helping them to understand when is an appropriate time to turn things off. So if I look at Pamela, for example, you might say, you know, Jamie, I was on my phone until 1 o'clock in the morning, just looking at that really good rice recipe. Or, you know, if I look at Faith, you might say, you know, I have a really good recipe for poi. But what we're trying to really get at is sometimes we don't always make the best decisions, and our kids don't always make the best decisions when they have that deprivation of sleep. And we've seen from this slide know that oftentimes our parents and oftentimes our kids use their devices late at night, but they know that when they wake up the next day, the part of being on the device is knowing that the light being emitted from that phone or that tech or whatever, that light actually helps to reduce melatonin levels, which we know causes disruption to sleep. Right. So it's not about the tech time of like putting it away. It's about whether or not it's affecting other parts of our lives that we need to actually interrupt. Right. Next slide. So here's the solution, I think. Here's a part of a way in which we kind of address these issues. So Faith and Janine mentioned earlier that when we're on technology, not only is time an important factor, but also the instances where we're connecting with others on. We also know that when we're confronted with something, right? So if I look at Alicia Chang right now, very, very cool backdrop, but if I were to say, I have a problem with your clock, Alicia Chang, because it just doesn't work for me, right? And we go back and forth on social media. We know that I might never actually have a resolution with your clock. Alicia Chang, I don't even know if that's a clock, but I'm just recognizing you from afar. But we might have a better approach about how we mitigate some of these issues. And what we do at Common Sense is actually have this step model. We call them dispositions, which is not looking at issues from black and white, but looking at how our kids can navigate and build habits while they're online. One of them is being, before you post something, take a step back and reflect. Is this the right time? Is this what I should actually be saying at this point? So we have a whole activity designated for slowing down and self-reflecting. Sometimes when we look at information, we want to react to things without actually seeking facts. I know that with my wife, sometimes she'll say something to me and I'm like, oh, I want to say something, but then I have to kind of take a step back and actually reflect on whether or not she's saying that, what were the facts behind some of her statements, right? And most of the time I'm wrong and most of the time she's right, but she's not here today, so she's not hearing that. No, just plain. And then the third piece is really thinking about other people's perspectives, right? We might not understand and agree with many of our politicians or the way we're connecting in certain spaces, but we want to be able to understand and build empathy and understand that other perspective. Where are you actually coming from? And then the final two things kind of go hand in hand, which is like, if you are confronted with something, what are the options that you have beyond just reacting to that situation, and how are you actually going to take action that reinforces the ha or reinforces the values that you have in your own proper family, your culture. So these are kind of some approaches to take. Again, this is not simply saying, hey, cyberbullying is bad, stop cyberbullying. We know there's nuances to these issues that we want to invite our students, we want our teachers and our families to really grapple and engage with. Next slide. So I'm going to give you kind of a quick example of how this actually works. And I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself just so I can stop hearing myself speak. And I'm going to ask you to read it. And then we're going to kind of think about how we might address it given the reality. So I see a few others on my screen. Let's see, what do I see on my screen? Alicia Chang, just because I just already picked on you, are you okay if unmuting yourself and reading the first paragraph, please? And thank you. Much mahalo to you for doing so.
Sure, can do. Kalani recorded a humiliating video of Ezekiel and posted it on his story for everyone to see. Ezekiel was mortified and asked Kalani to please stop and take the video down. Kalani didn't listen. He thought the video was really funny. Plus, a lot of people were commenting and saying Kalani was hilarious for posting it.
Beautiful. Clifford Lim, would you mind reading the next paragraph? Thank you. Much mahalo, Alicia, for doing that.
By the next day, it seemed like everyone at school had seen the video. Ezekiel tried to act like it didn't bother him, but he was really embarrassed and went straight home after school instead of going to the big volleyball game he and all his friends had been looking forward to.
Beautiful. So notice as you read through this dilemma, the question is, well, what should actually happen next? is was Ezekiel actually wrong for actually posting a story? At least if you don't mind, can you unmute and ask, like, what's your gut reaction to all this? Like, who's on the wrong on this and who's on the right? What should actually happen next? I'm sorry, Alyssa Miyamoto, would you mind giving us your comment? Yeah. Sorry, you're probably like giving me like a jerk. Why did you call on me? I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
I definitely think Kalani's in the wrong, but I'm sorry. Could you? I was responding to a teacher text.
Even better, you know, this is a proper use of our time. Yeah, I think just in general, our gut reaction here, and I think you mentioned some of these thoughts here, right? So here's the point that we're trying to make. One, we actually build in these dilemmas in our classroom. We encourage our teachers to explore and make them normalize these experiences. We realize one of two things, that these issues are very much in the gray, right? They're not right or wrong, that there's multiple things at stake here. Now, some of you might be saying, forget you, Jamie, like Kalani's in the complete wrong or Ezekiel's in the completely wrong. And that's where we're trying to like confirm our own bias, you know, taking a step back, like, why do I actually feel this way, or how are we actually doing that? Next slide. I think that's it. So, Janine, Faith, I'll kind of defer back to you if you want me to continue the conversation, but here's kind of a solution to that. Whereas before I gave you a methodology, something you can share out with some of your teachers or your communities. One of the things that we offer at Common Sense is a completely free lesson from K through 12 that you can then encourage. So instead of actually talking about how we need to address cyberbullying, we want to push for how to be actually kind and courageous in online spaces. Right. So these are the kind of conversations we'll get to in depth at some point. Janine, I will sort of defer if we're going to go deeper into these lessons. But the intention is to raise awareness of these topics and not necessarily provide a right or wrong answer. Now, again, you might say there is a right answer, but the overall objective and the outcome for our kids is building those habits so they know what to do when no one's actually watching. Next slide. All right, I think I will kind of take it back to Janine or Faith on this, and I'm just going to share really quickly how these things are broken down. So as I said, this is completely free platform. We're not collecting any information, or we're not trying to sell anything on the side. These are resources if you haven't been privy to them of how you can use them. We have student-facing videos. We have activities for each topic that correspond to things that teachers can then share out with families. All of our lessons are on a Google deck or presentation, so there's a number of prompts embedded in them. And then we have, if you have other speakers, we have translated some of our content into Spanish, and we also have activities in a multiple language. I haven't done the Hawaiian language, but at some point I'll figure out how to embed that. So this is kind of the layout. There's over 73 lessons completely free of use for you all to incorporate. So I think that is my time, but if there's anything else, I'm always here for you. I'm excited to be part of your presence, and much mahalo for the space and time. Are there any questions though? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, Shane. Thank you for saying that on the chat, right? Removing kind of censorship. Like, I think, again, there's room for that, but I think we need to maybe take a step back when we react to censor these experiences, like have to and from consequences. If you do this, while it's helpful for our communities, in addition to that, we want to be able to teach our kids during this time. So kudos to you for sharing that comment, Shane. Oh, you're amazing, Lisa. Thank you. All right, Miss Faith, Miss Janine, if there's anything else, I am part of the DOE now. No, just playing. But if I
Yes, you are. You've been hanai'd.
If you guys ever need a place to stay in the mainland, or if you just have an extra room in your Hawaiian home, you know who to call at this point. So much mahalo to you all. Appreciate your time. Huh?
Thanks so much, Jamie. That was awesome. Okay, so I'm going to share this flyer that the DOE made, and it helps to bridge that 6 components of digital citizenship with the 6 HA outcomes. So we're going to give you a little bit of time to take a look at them and think about what it is you could actually do today or tomorrow. And then the next slide is going to be a chance for us to share some of those ideas on a Jamboard. So take a look at the 6 and see if there's one or more that you surely can do right away. And I'll take us to the next slide with the Jamboard. Oops, what happened? Sorry. Oh, did we lose the Jamboard?
No, you right there. You're there. It's on the top. Click on the
Change
link.
the slide. It
Yeah.
looks different. Okay, thanks, Jenny. Okay, so this is kind of what it's going to be like, and then
I'll put the link in the chat.
Oh,
But you know,
thanks.
we're running short on time,
Yeah, we
so
are.
well, real quickly, just you can go in and add. Some people already added stuff. Wow, you
Yeah,
folks
look at
are
that.
fast.
Pam is in there.
Yeah.
Sharing. Awesome. Thanks, Pam. And so is Carrie. Appreciate
Thank you.
it, guys. Okay, so let me just go back to our presentation. And we just want to share that, you know, digital citizenship event was last week, but the skills and dispositions we really should be practicing and reinforcing and sharing with our students every day. So Common Sense Education has curated an array of resources to help us that we can reference here. So this is a link to, you know, take advantage of some of those. I'm sorry, was somebody going to say something?
Oh no, that was just me. Those are the links to Digital Citizenship Week, which was last week, but you can celebrate it every week. Yeah.
Right. Right. Thanks.
From Common Sense Education. Yeah.
Okay, and this is a book from our statewide ebook collection, and it's Digital Citizenship in Schools, written by Mike Ribble, who is like, you know, everybody recognizes him as a digital citizenship implementation guy. And and on the left are how you can access the library and borrow this or any other book. And one resource in that book is this rubric that we found is for foundational lessons. And it gives ideas like how to gauge where students' understanding of appropriate use of technology and other areas where, you know, you can, it will help you to assess students' growth. And this is the digital compass that Jeannie referred to, where it's not always black and white or seldom always right and wrong. They're really shades of gray, and we want to kind of open our minds to the perspectives of others and try to encourage our students to do that as well, to help them be more empathetic and understanding of everybody around us and the different ideas and backgrounds that everybody comes with. So here again are the standards, just that, you know, kind of full circle. And so I guess our key takeaways are, if you could maybe just think of 3 things: to always be kind, to be careful about the information that you share, and to balance your online screen time with your offline, you know, physical activities and balancing your life. So at this time, we want to really thank our Hanai colleague, Jamie Nunes from Common Sense Education, who always shares his time, his resources, and his expertise with so much aloha. Some additional videos that you can watch. The real Pharaoh ones are really funny. A video about the computer science journey that Hawaii Dewey has taken, looking back a couple of years and looking forward into the next 3 or so years, what we can expect and where we're going. So for our door prizes, we want to look at the participation list and whose name has the most letters in common with our special guest, Jamie. And I'm kind of going to defer to Janine.
So we will do that after the webinar. We're out of time, so we will inform you if you are the winner. Yeah.
So please fill in our feedback form. And thanks so much for participating today. We really appreciate your attendance and your input, sharing of your ideas. And thanks again to Jamie.
All right, Faye, take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Mahalo. Aloha.
Aloha.
I just put the feedback form in the chat. So if you have feedback for us, please, we welcome your feedback to help us make the next presentation better. The slide deck is in the agenda.
Okay, if
I'll put the agenda link again
Yeah.
in the chat, but everything is in the agenda. And we learned that from Common Sense Education. So everything you need is in the agenda. It's a one-stop shop. We'll see if Carrie is a winner for a third time, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate your participation.
Thank
And
you.
I will stop the recording now. Thank you for reminding me to press record. I will stop the recording. So now you can say